All right, today we're jumping into a monumental story. It's an epic, really, just filled with conflict, incredible innovation, and so much contradiction. The story of the United States. It is a journey that stretches across centuries and continents, and it has absolutely shaped the world we all live in today.
So that's a great question to start with, right? How is a nation's story written? Is it in these big grand declarations? Or is it in the smoke of battlefields? Or maybe in the quiet, everyday struggles of its people? Well, the American story is written in all of those. It's this constant churning narrative of ideals crashing right into reality.
Okay, let's dive into this. To even begin to understand the United States, we have to go back, way back, long before the country even existed, to a continent that was already home to ancient and incredibly vibrant civilizations.
What this timeline just slams home is the immense scale of history we're talking about. For thousands of years, thousands, before European sails ever appeared on the horizon, this was a continent of nations. You had these powerful civilizations, like the one centered at Cahokia, with its massive earthen mounds, just thriving, all connected by these complex networks of trade and culture. And then, in 1492, one single event happened that would trigger a change so big, it would reshape the entire globe.
You see, the arrival of Christopher Columbus. It wasn't a discovery, it was a collision of worlds. It kicked off this frantic, and let's be honest, often brutal era of colonization, as the great powers of Europe just raced to claim a piece of what they started calling the New World.
Now, what's really interesting here is how these three major powers, Spain, France, and Britain, all had completely different game plans. The Spanish were after gold and glory. The French, they built this vast fur trading network. And the British, they established settlements that would eventually, maybe unintentionally, lay the groundwork for a brand new nation.
And from this whole colonial mix, something totally new began to emerge. It wasn't just about territory anymore. No, this was about the birth of an idea, a nation that was founded not on a shared ancestry, but on a shared belief in liberty.
These 13 British colonies, kind of strung along the Atlantic coast, they became this giant laboratory for new ideas. And over generations, the colonists got more and more frustrated with British rule. They felt their rights were being ignored. A sense of a unique American identity was brewing. And you know what? It was about to boil over.
And this brings us to a huge moment, a lightning in a bottle moment. In 1776, the colonists made this radical claim, one that still echoes to this day. This one sentence from the Declaration of Independence. It became the moral and philosophical foundation of the United States. It was an incredibly audacious promise. But that beautiful promise of equality was born with this profound, soul-deep contradiction baked right in. A nation dedicated to liberty was at the exact same time building its economy on the brutal institution of slavery. This conflict between the ideal and the reality would become the central, tragic engine of American history for the next 100 years. And that fundamental hypocrisy, well, it just couldn't be sustained. The tension between freedom and slavery would eventually tear the young nation apart, leading it straight into its darkest and most defining hour, the American Civil War. So as the country pushed westward, fueled by this idea they called manifest destiny, this belief that it was destined to span the whole continent, it wasn't just claiming land, it was displacing countless Native American nations. And every single new territory that was acquired forced this one single explosive question. Would it be free or would it allow slavery? Each new state threatened to tip that delicate balance of power, pushing the North and the South to a point where compromise was just no longer possible. The result was just a catastrophic war of brother against brother. The scale of the bloodshed was unimaginable, and it scarred the nation for generations. It is still the deadliest conflict in American history, a brutal, brutal price paid to try and settle the nation's founding contradiction. But then, from the depths of that tragedy, President Abraham Lincoln gave the war a new, powerful meaning. With these words at Gettysburg, he totally redefined the nation's purpose. The war wasn't just about preserving the Union anymore. It was about giving it a new birth of freedom, a chance to finally, maybe, live up to its own ideals. So, after surviving its own self-destruction, the reunited nation enters its next chapter, and it transforms itself with just incredible speed, hurtling into a century of unprecedented growth and global influence. I mean, the century that followed was a true whirlwind of creation and chaos. You had a powerful industrial revolution that completely remade the country, building massive factories and transcontinental railroads, all while drawing waves of immigrants from all over the world to its booming, overcrowded cities. But this era of explosive growth was also punctuated by crises, a crippling Great Depression that challenged the very idea of American prosperity, followed by two devastating world wars that pulled the nation onto the global stage. These events wouldn't just test the country, they would completely reshape the world order. And you can see the result of all that upheaval right here in the data. While the old powers of Europe were just shattered by war, the United States, with its industrial might totally untouched, emerged as an absolute juggernaut. By 1950, it wasn't just a world power, it was the dominant global superpower. So this long, dramatic, and often violent odyssey brings us to the present, and it shows that the story of America isn't some closed book on a shelf. It's a living, breathing narrative that is still being written every single day. You know, when you look closely, you see the same themes just echoing through time. The debate over who is truly included in that promise of we the people, the tension between individual liberty and the common good, and this ongoing struggle to perfect the union. The work is never finished. And that leaves us with this final thought. History isn't just something that happens in the past, it's a force that is actively shaping the future. The next chapter? Well, it hasn't been written yet, and its authors are the people living it right now. So what's that next line gonna be?